Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to what I would describe as a showcase review for the new model by one of my favourite micro brands, Straton. It is called the Tourer. But don't think that just because it's got one name, there's only one choice for you. In fact, if you're one of the people who struggles to make basic decisions in everyday life, I'd get a strong cup of coffee and a pen and paper to hand, because you're going to need them if you fancy picking up yourself a Tourer. 2 different case sizes, 3 different dial variants, giving a choice of 5 different models, 6 different colourways, 3 different strap options. My maths suggests that there are 90, that's 90 different permutations available to you. Looks like I've got my work cut out today, doesn't it? Now, these watches are prototypes. By the time you watch this video, they will be on their way back to Kyle in Switzerland, but he has allowed me to pick the model variant of my choice. It looks like I've got a decision to make as well today, doesn't it? Let's flip the camera and get on with it. So let's start, I think, very sensibly with a look at the Straton website. I will obviously leave a link to that one in the description of the video. It'll help you make sense of all the different permutations and combinations that are available. From $299 to around $540, so a fair spread of prices as well. We start, the cheapest is a GMT Quartz 40mm, available in 5 different colours and with a choice of strap, bracelet, or strap and bracelet. Moving on, there's the same look, but it's a larger 43mm Quartz GMT for, again, $299. Then we move on to the GMT Automatic, only in 43. They couldn't fit the movement into a 40mm case. If you don't want a GMT function, you can have one of these triple calendar autos, again in 43, again in a variety of different colour options. And if you're not into complications, they also do a basic 3-hander in 40 and 43mm. Does that all make sense to you? Is it at least beginning to make sense to you? Right, let's move on, shall we? Thankfully, I don't have all 90 models to show you today, but I do have 6 of them. I've got 2 40mm Quartz GMTs, I've got 2 43mm triple calendar automatics, and I've got 2 43mm GMT automatics. What I've done is I've mixed them up, I've sized up 3 of the bracelets, so I'll show you them all on wrist later on, and I've put 3 on their complementary leather rally style straps. The green gets a green, the blue gets a blue, and so on with matching stitches. So what can I tell you about all of these watches? What are the commonalities across the board? Well, they're all made of 316L stainless steel, all feature double domed sapphire crystal with anti-reflective undercoating, all have 200 meters of water resistance with screw down crowns, all feature a 2-year warranty, and all come in one of those nice little Straton travel pouches that I'm sure you've seen before in my previous reviews of the brand. And one final commonality is that all the prices will go up by $50 on the 1st of January. So if you are into these, there's only 300 of each different model, each different colorway, each different variant available. If you are into these, then I would get on board now, because obviously the value equation diminishes somewhat on January the 1st. Let's start with the little guy then. Let's start with the 40mm. As I said, they couldn't squeeze the automatic into this case. They also, I guess, couldn't fit all the subdials for the triple calendar. So if you want a 40mm, then you've got 2 choices. It's either this Quartz GMT or there's a plain old 3-hander featuring a Miyota 9015 movement. This one, being Quartz, features a Ronda Swiss 515 with GMT complication. So 40mm in diameter, there's a clue there, 14mm thick, 46mm lug tip to lug tip, 20mm lugs on the 40mm model, tapering down to 17.5, back up to about 20 at the clasp. Sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, this one weighs in at 160 grams, so it's a fairly cute little thing, but fairly stout as well when it's on the supplied bracelet. Anyway, all these bracelets have solid links with push pins, solid end links, and a milled clasp with 3 levels of micro adjustment. Now, all GMTs feature 120 click bi-directional rotating bezels, as you would expect to find on a proper GMT. They also feature a rotating inner bezel. So you can use this one to time a dive or whatever you want, because it does have 200 meters of water resistance, Plus, you can use it to track a time zone on the outside. So interesting, I've never seen a watch that has an inner rotating bezel and an outer rotating bezel, but these Tourers have got both. Date complication down there at the 6 o'clock, and a really interesting pattern on the dial. Reminds me of feathers. I'm going to pop in some macro here. It's not an even linear sunburst. There are some deliberate imperfections there. I think it is very attractive. Gives it an organic feel to the dial. Obviously, all those indices are applied. There's a wider one at the 12, single batons everywhere else, and a frame around the date complication at 6. Like all Stratons, the watch speaks for itself. There's always plenty of colour, always plenty of light, but they don't tend to over-brand them. So it's just the Straton S under the index at 12 and GMT Tourer printed above the date complication at 6. And here's the other one, the brown one, for a look at the case finishing. Nice coin edge bezel, nice and easy to grip even with this smaller size. Dual signed Straton crowns, and as I said, both of these are screw down, helping with that water resistance. We've got a linear brush on the mid case and a nice chamfered edge. There's a bit of curvature to the case itself. No case back protrusion, so these ones will wear well. Now, the leather strap is an option or standard depending on how you go for it. I would definitely be optioning up both straps, I think, for the sake of an extra $20. Very nice, very comfortable, very flexible leather here with complementary stitching, and it has got a proper Straton buckle there with a nice deep etched engraving. Gives you the choice of getting this one wet if you do want to on the bracelet, or something a bit lighter and a bit more casual by putting it on the leather. Now, I'll put up a multiple lume video. All of these watches feature C3 Superluminova and heaps of it. One of my complaints about the Straton models of old is that the lume was always a little bit disappointing. They've got a real kind of all-round versatility thanks to the sapphire, thanks to the screw-down crown, thanks to the water resistance, and I felt that it was the lume that just pulled them back from being a real potential all-round watch. Not so these Tourers. I think they've really upped their game in terms of the lume, much appreciated, and they've even lumed the GMT hand, which is always nice to see as well. On to the 43mm triple calendar variant, and this is undoubtedly the most conservative of all of the colourways. All grey, black and silver, just a touch of colour on the end of the second hand and a tiny little splash of colour on those hour markers all the way around. I do quite like this one though. Now, this is powered by a Miyota 9122. It's a triple calendar variant of the Miyota 9000 series. I've seen one or two of these movements on the channel in the past, but they're not all that common, which is a bit of a shame. You get a date down at the 6 o'clock, you get a day of the week indicator over at the 9, and you get a month indicator over at the 3 o'clock if you just can't remember what month of the year it is. Now, what are we doing here? The crown, the 3 o'clock crown works as it normally would, hacking and hand winding the movement. There we are, it's hacked. The crown down at the 4 o'clock operates an inner rotating bezel. So again, you can kind of run this like a second time zone. Pseudo GMT feature if you want. Now, the crown up the top doesn't screw down, but it does depress, and if you can see there, the month of the year indicator moving with that one. That's how that works. If you want to move the day of the week, you just have to keep spinning and spinning and spinning until you find the right day of the week. Then you can adjust the date on the second crown pull, then you can adjust the time again on the third crown pull. All very straightforward in operation. Bezel on this one is 120 click unidirectional, so again, you can dive with this one if you really want to. Certainly you can get it wet, no problem at all on the bracelet. That's a more striking colour variant, this one with blue, with a hardened aluminium bezel insert as well. Again, I'll chuck in a couple of macro shots here for you. You can see some of those details on the dial. Pronounced sunburst, but you can see what I mean, that kind of uneven organic feathered. It's almost like kind of ice. Definitely an interesting effect, and one which I really quite like. Haven't seen that before anywhere, to be honest. I suppose I should show you the case backs at some point. They are identical across the range. Not all that spectacular, if I'm being honest. Nothing to write home about. Screw down, 200 meters, usual spec sheet around the outside. These are prototypes, so this one has already had a bit of a kicking, as you can see. It wasn't me, I promise. Alright, on to what I'm guessing is the flagship of the Tourer range. It's certainly the most expensive of them. $540 US gets you this one on the bracelet, and the the leather strap chucked in as well. Now, movement in this one is not an ETA or a Sellita, it's a Swiss Tech, a movement that I have not encountered before. Swiss made, it's a Swiss Tech S24-45. It's a 28 joule clone of an ETA movement. I'm guessing it's based on an ETA 2893 Sellita 330, something like that anyway. It certainly is similar to those movements in operation. Hand wind the movement from the first crown pop, pop it one more. You can adjust the date by rolling it backwards. You can adjust the GMT hand in 30-minute increments rolling forwards. Third pull of the crown, and you can adjust the time as per normal. Roughly 40-hour power reserve with this one as well. As with the others, the screw down crown at 2 o'clock operates an inner rotating bezel, so you can time a parking meter as well as keeping track of a second time zone. So Swiss made automatic GMT movement, $500, unique styling. I think this one is a pretty strong package overall. And last but not least, it's one of the more colourful ones, it's the green one. I do love Kyle's use of colour. We've got a touch of blue on the upper bezel, orange on the lower bezel. We've got a blue and orange GMT hand and a bright orange second hand. I've described them before as a bit of a Marmite brand. Not everybody goes for these super 70s looks, but as a child of the 70s, I quite appreciate them overall, and I don't think they're overdone. Alright, let's get all 6 of these on wrist. My 7-inch wrist for your reference. You can see what the 40 looks like compared to the 43. Definitely a cute little thing. I think because it's got a fairly compact lug to lug, it looks a little smaller, and it certainly wears a little smaller than I was expecting, in the same way that the 43 actually wears a bit more comfortably than I was expecting as well. So I would suggest going for the 40 if you're a guy with smaller than average wrists, but if you have average or above average, you should have no problem wearing the 43. Leather strap, super comfy out of the box, no problems at all with this one. Very nice, very soft, and I do like the Straton branded hardware and the colour match stitching, nice details. A lot of thought goes into the design of these watches. And that's the 43mm triple calendar. Haven't adjusted the camera angle so you get a direct comparison between the bigger watch and the smaller watch. Obviously some of the dimensions differ as well. 22mm lug width, this one's heavier at 180 grams, and 48mm lug tip to lug tip rather than 45. But even then, 48mm is not particularly unwieldy given the cushion style of the case design overall. And again, that's the blue 43mm triple calendar, some nice colour matching between the stitches, the tip of the second hand and those little hour markers there. More pronounced sunburst effect on this dial than on the grey one, that's for sure. Golden brown GMT, I think you can probably tell which of these watches I'm going to be asking for Kyle to send me in due course. I reckon this one. It wears very nicely, not too big on wrist, and I do love those colours. Just enough orange there without being too much, I think. And finally, it's the green GMT Automatic with those flashes of blue and orange. Very nice indeed. Super, super comfy, super soft, flexible leather straps, these ones. Out of the box wearability, no problem at all. And a final size comparison, this being the 43 and this being the 40. So a lot to like about this one today, I think. You're certainly not short of choices, are you, if you're interested in picking up one of these Tourers? You're perhaps dazzled by too much choice, if anything. But what are my complaints? What are my moans and niggles? Well, I guess one is going to involve that Swiss Tech movement. It is a bit of an unknown quantity. It certainly doesn't have the brand name and the brand recognition that an ETA or a Sellita would have, so that's something that you're going to have to think about if you do want to pick up the Swiss Auto. And the price hike thing, I believe they're going to go up by $50 on the first of every month until they're sold out. To be honest though, it looks like most of them are gone already, but obviously these look better at the current prices than they will if you're watching this video in April or May, for example. And then there's the bracelet clasp. You know I'm a bracelet guy. I wear the vast majority of my watches on bracelets the vast majority of the time. And I've often said a good bracelet can make or break a watch. This is a good bracelet. There's a little bit of a kind of jut out here when it transitions from the end link to the first of the multi-jubilee links, but it's not too bad at all. Push pins were a bit tricky, but there'll be a nice bit of flexibility. It's a comfortable bracelet to wear in actual operation. My problem is with the clasp. This is the basic, the base model, pretty much the bottom of the milled clasp ladder. I bought clasps like this one on AliExpress for $6.50, obviously without the Straton branding, but I'm sure Straton could have perhaps spent an extra couple of dollars getting the next one up the ladder, something with some chamfered edges and a bit more micro adjustment here. It just feels a little bit cheap by comparison to the rest of the watch. But overall, I think an excellent job. Makes a lot of sense, really, does it? You put the work into the case design, then you stick a whole bunch of different movements inside them, so the one watch actually becomes 6 different watches. Kyle knows exactly what he's doing. He knows his audience very well now, and he's coming out with a really consistent, very deliberate overall brand design aesthetic from his first model to his current models. He's not following any fashion trends, and he's certainly not just pumping out models willy-nilly in an attempt to grab sales. You do pay a little bit more to get a Straton on your wrist, but if you like the look, then I think it's well worth it. So there you have it, the Straton Tourer. You can't say that you didn't have enough choice, can you? I do like Straton watches. I definitely appreciate what Kyle is doing with this one and with all of the other models in the range. 1970s, lots of big, bright, bold colours, motorsport inspired. I really get what he's doing and I like the aesthetic. It doesn't work for everyone though, I must admit. And as always, if you're into these ones, get in early because that $50 price hike each month means that they are not going to look as appealing if you're watching this video in May as they are if you're watching it in late December when it's published. For me, I'll be going for the automatic GMT in the 43mm case. I was worried it was going to be too big, but I think it fits my wrist very nicely indeed. The movement is a bit of an unknown. I would have preferred to have a Solita or an ETA in the back of it, that's for sure, but the fact that they managed to keep it at under $500 US means I think that movement is a gamble worth taking. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.